So I studied
Anything about
about all the bacteria which causes diarrhea.
anything specific about food poisoning did you study?
So I studied about all the all the types of E. coli, like enteropathogenic, toxigenic,
Okay.
invasive.
Okay.
So
So
what if
anything specific in E. coli? Diarrhea that is a bit peculiar. Anything specific about it?
so like
Okay.
this was in
Yeah.
in intro hemorrhagic. I got to know that it produces cigar toxin.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. Yes.
and it also causes bloody diarrhea, and it's also zoosporic.
Okay. 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 So I assume that others also have done a little bit of an exercise in studying it. So now I'd like to start on cholera. Okay. So just get it sorted. Give me a minute. Okay. Yes. Just give me a minute. Okay. Just a while. Okay, okay. So we're going to start on cholera, and basically cholera. It's an acute diarrheal disease that can kill within hours if left untreated. Okay, cholera has been long associated as a killer disease, and it took the integrity of some truly remarkable scientists to find out the cause. It was such a killer disease. I'll just go a bit about the history as well. So I forgot to record the class. This recording the class is always a something to forget. So I'll be talking about a little bit about history of cholera, also something very interesting in epidemiology and public health. Cholera is one of the precursor for public health. Actually, it is the main disease that triggered public health. You can assume in that way also. So it's a very interesting thing. Okay, Suprema, something is wrong with your connection. I think you'll have to rejoin. Okay. Okay. So good morning, everyone. So I'll be starting today's class on cholera. The cholera, you can see this, right? Cholera is an acute diarrheal disease that can kill within hours if left untreated. Cholera has long been a killer disease, and it took the integrity of some truly remarkable scientists to figure out the cause. There's a the If you look at the history of cholera, the way they found out the causative organism of cholera was something not as typical as other diseases. Okay, I'll just talk about that in a while. Cholera remains a global public health problem threat, and is an indicator of inequality and lack of social development because of its cause, because of why the disease occurs. It is still a indicator of this lack of social development, inequality, and all those things. Okay, so uh, cholera has been reported for a long time. In Greek history, Hippocrates also has written something about cholera and all. And in the Indian Peninsula, Indian subcontinent region, any old history, any old text has got documents saying something about cholera, something related to cholera. Okay, and at that time, what happened was a lot of people started to die because of similar symptoms. Let's say in 1600s there was one episode, and then in the recent era, last 200, 300 years, last 200 years, in the early 1800s, people used to die with similar symptoms. Suddenly they had diarrhea, clinical feature of cholera they had, and then they used to die. And the cause was thought to be miasma theory. Miasma was something called in miasma. It means a noxious form of bad air emerging from rotting organic matter. So it's all about pollution. It was thought pollution causes diarrhea, this type of diarrhea. So that was the general thought. Okay, and in that thought, cholera was treated, managed, and thought to be that was the cause. That was the thing. And then germ theory came in, and germ theory postulated that there is some organism, right? So causative also organism also was being looked for. In the meantime, three things happened. Some in the right now, any new finding, just take an example of this coronavirus thing. Any new finding, we all get to know immediately, right? If you are interested, we can find it immediately. But in 1800s, the early 1800s, giving information from one part of the world to another part of the world is a very big problem. One scientist is looking for XYZ disease in Egypt, another is looking for another disease in India, another is looking for the same disease in China. Their communication was not there, right? It took a lot of time to communicate. And those who were in the Central Core European region, they had some sort of communication, but a lengthy duration of time was taken for it to reach from one place to another. So that problem was there. In the meantime, what happened was these three scientists are very prominent over there. Three people have photos I've shown over here. Number one is Robert Cox. Number two is John Snow, and another is Filippo Pazzini. So what happened was, I'll start off with John Snow. John Snow is the father of epidemiology right now, not the John Snow that you all have been familiar with in Game of Thrones and all, but he's the original John Snow, let's say. He's the father of modern epidemiology. He's the one who devised epidemiology, basically. And what was his postulation was that in 1800s, late 1800s, what happened was somewhere in 1850s, around that time, uh, in London, there was a huge outbreak of diarrhea, cholera. Okay, and there was a huge outbreak of diarrhea, and he postulated that the cause was water rather than air. He postulated that cause was water, and his theory, he proved it by cutting off water supply to certain part of the world, certain part of the London, some certain boroughs of London, and once the water was cut off, diarrhea case suddenly came down. So he could prove that one certain supply was having cholera. People receiving water from one part of the water supplying agency received had cholera, and once you sort that off, no cholera. So he could prove that, right? So he said it's water, and then he was looking for what was the cause. And in the same time, in somewhere around 1850s, this guy called Filippo Pacini, what he did was in Italy, he was a doctor. He was a doctor and he was practicing medicine in forgot the place name, but it's in Italy. And his in his practice field, right from his medical school days when he was into anatomy, he was much into anatomy. He found that in the intestine of people who died because of this diarrhea, and in the intestine of people who died following handling people who got diarrhea, he found that villi were missing. Villi, intestinal villi were missing. And he found something curved, kind of comma shaped something he found. And then he labeled it Vibrio cholerae. Okay. He labeled this organism. He labeled an organism. He did not say the name was a bit later on, but he has these documents present in 1850s, 1855. He has presented documents saying that yes, the organism, this is the organism that has been there, that is the cause that has been postulated by him. Okay. And then in this around the same century, in 1800, a bit later part of the 1800, this guy was looking for, he's Robert Koch's theory, germ theory, all those things. He's a big fellow, right, in microbiology. What he was doing is he was doing some research in this cause of diarrhea because he knew it's some organism. He had to find the organism to prove, right? So there was a huge outbreak in Egypt at that time. When he was doing the study in Egypt, there was a huge outbreak. So what he did was he went to Egypt. His team was looking for the cause, and he found same thing. In the intestine, there are some certain organism they colonize, and then they could even postulate that these two, both of them, Robert Cox and Pacini, both postulated that fluid and electrolyte loss was there, and organism is there. Organism multiplies in the villi in the intestine, and cholera is being caused. That's what his postulate, and he wanted to prove it again. So he sent another group next year. He was in Egypt. He sent another group to India, Calcutta, to find out the cause, and then it was proven. Okay, then it was proven that um, it's cholera. So people label Robert Cox as the one who discovered cholera, and there's one big group of people who say it's Pacini. Although around 30 years of difference is there between their publications, but his is the older one. Okay, so there is a dispute in it. There is a controversy, but there is a controversy such that there is not a struggle in between them. It is just lack of communication. He was the scientist in his own world, he was a scientist in his whole world. So they did not communicate. They just published the paper and then they went away. That paper did not reach other part of the world, right? So being a British guy, colonial country, uh, he could spread his knowledge and he could popularize his theories, and then he got Nobel Prize and all for as well. But he was also an equally deserving guy at that time. Okay, so then cholera was established. So basically, what happened was cholera has always been associated with Indian subcontinent. It's always been associated with this part of the world. The Ganges Delta, the River Ganga, especially in the Calcutta region, in the Bengal region, it's called. It might they some call it even the disease of the Bengals. So there are various names about it. So that is the origin of cholera, they say. And with people's movement, this disease spread worldwide. And till now, there are 7 global pandemics of cholera. 7 different episodes of cholera pandemic has occurred, and WHO still says that we are currently in the 7th pandemic. It has not ended. The 7th pandemic started in 1960s and it has not ended. The document I'll show you in a while. It says that it has not ended. But what is it is saying that in the 70s, 80s it stopped, but now we are going in very very sporadic. It's the same strain, so same pandemic. It's called in that way. So basically, what was the cause at that time was they were British. The disease was in India. Okay, the disease was in India, and in this Indian subcontinent, there were British people. So this British people, the British Army, who came, got the disease. Cholera has got a property of having a carrier for a long time. So the non-diseased ones, just the infected ones, took the disease to other part of the world. And in the second pandemic, it was majority Russia. Third pandemic, Russia. So slowly, you can have a look at the history, and you can look for the 7 pandemics of cholera. You can look for cholera pandemics, and if you have got time, you can just go through it. It's an interesting part of medical history. Okay, So how the disease spread, there are various theories, there are various postulates, and there are various evidence also, and they all end up in one thing, that it originated in Southeast Asia, it originated in the Indian subcontinent, and it spread with the British Army and other people and other merchants and all this moved around. Okay, and cholera was thought to be caused by various things also, but by now, even in the first pandemic, they had no idea what causes cholera, but later on it was proven. Recently, if you look at the recent data, these two countries are the most notable one, and Haiti, they are Haiti and Yemen. Yemen is a very sad story. There's war over there. Millions of people have got cholera, but good thing, very few are dying over there. Humanitarian management is very efficient till now, and it's a bit less now. 2016-17 was the worst year. And Haiti is another country that was hit very hard, very huge number of cases, and if you look at the international papers, Nepal is associated with it. It is said that Nepali army, UN peacekeepers force who are stationed in Haiti post earthquake. There was a huge earthquake in Haiti, and people were living in camps over there. And then um, there's one interesting paper saying that the origin of that gene of that strain of cholera, that genetic genomic study has proven that that is the one that is found in Nepal. That cholera is the one that is found in Nepal, and they proved that Nepal army camp is there, UN peacekeepers force camp is there, and the river is there, and the peacekeepers excreta was disposed not in an efficient way, and the water got contaminated. That water spread the disease, and it got into the camp, and thousands of people got sick, and thousands died as well. Okay, more than the earthquake, it's this. So Nepal is in a dispute right now with UN, saying that no, it's not ours, and they are saying that it's theirs. Nepali scientists are genetically proving that it's not Nepali. UN scientists are proving that it's Nepali. So there's a dispute going on, but still, anyway, whatever be the cause, they have labeled it, rather than country, they have said that it's UN's problem. So right now, Nepal is a bit in calm position right now. So there are various things right now. These two are the major ones. Okay, so globally, it's estimated that about 1.3 to 4 million cases of cholera occur every year, but only a small fraction of it die. Okay, about 21,000 to about 143,000 die because of it. I've taken two extracts from WHO's paper. Yearly, they produce cholera report, and 2019 November they produced this cholera in 2018's report. So 2019 report is not going to come anytime soon. If you read at 2017's paper, it said that the year 2017 was historic for cholera in several ways. Number one, it marked 200 years since the onset of epidemic in 1817, while the current seventh pandemic continues as the longest ever recorded. So they have still labeled it as the current one. Okay, explosive countrywide pandemic killed thousands of people, killing this much. Okay, I'll show you the number of sick. Democratic Republic of Congo and Somalia. Yemen was the first country to record more than 1 million suspected cases in a single month. And there was huge surge in other countries as well. 2018, it is said that the seventh pandemic persists for about 57 years. It's not going to end anytime soon. Although the pandemic has indeed country initiatives and collective global work have provided encouraging results that may prove pivotal for long-term national and global things. So not a much of a thing. The decrease, there was a 60% decrease because 2017 was a very worst year for the world in terms of cholera. So there was a big reduction, and mainly the reduction was because of Yemen. Okay, and I'll show you the charts here. From 1989 to 18, if you see, number is hovering somewhere around, these are the actual reported case. Okay, not estimated but reported case. So reported case is somewhere around not more than 6 lakhs, 600,000, 400,000, or 200,000 is the usual reported case. Estimated to be much more, but reported is this much. It hovers around this much, and whenever there is a conflict and all, it goes up. In 2017, Yemen spiked it and it came down. Okay, So 2019 is a bit less than this. So this is the general trend of cholera in the world. This black line is the case fatality. Case fatality who is somewhere around 3%, 3 to 2 to 3% case fatality. If you see majority of the ones is between 2 to 3, let's say 2, somewhere about there, the averages. In Nepal, okay, reported outbreak was first time reported in 1910. This is the first time it was reported. Okay, but cholera has been associated with Nepal for a long time, especially Kathmandu. Okay, um, you all know Tiku Hospital. You all have you all heard of this hospital, Supras Tropical Disease Hospital? Tiku Hospital is called. Have you all heard of it?
Yes, sir.
That's right. It's really popular these days. Tiku Hospital. It's the primary corona center, coronavirus COVID hospital, and that hospital. Has anyone been to that area? Has anyone been to that area?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Seen that hospital? Where is it?
Yes, sir.
It has got an
To
interesting history with cholera. Anyone go hospital associated with cholera?
So Bagmati River besides it.
Bagmati River. Okay, very good. I'm just trying to show you one photo related there. If it comes up, let's see. Uh, See, cholera was a big disease at that time. In Kathmandu, the inhabitation was normally the inhabitation was crowded one. Okay, although now also it's crowded. The crowd at that time was very small population congregated living in very small area, congested area, and then last parts was empty. And then another group of people living in small area, last parts empty. If you look at, if you just imagine the streets of Thamel, it was one large area. Asan area was one large area. It was connected with Basantapur area, and there was a gap over there. And then Teku area was another. Tripureshwar area was a bit crowded area. If you come this side, Lazimpat area was a bit crowded area. Other area was again silent. If you go other part of the city, so what I mean to say is in Kathmandu there was pockets of congested area. Okay, congested because the way local people of Kathmandu, the Newari people, the way they build their house is continuous type. So that continuous type of housing, what it did was congested living was there, and nearby rivers are there. Abundant number of rivers were there in Nepal, in Kathmandu. It is all the majority of the rivers are hidden right now. In fact, it's all converted into sewers, but there were small rivers and all. So these rivers acted as the source carriers of the disease. Okay, and the disease reached from one place to another that way. So what I'm trying to say is that congested living area was there in certain part of the city. uh, I'll just show you this just a while. And that congested area, what it was perfect place for habitation of this cholera to occur. Okay, so cholera occurred because of that. Now I'll just show you one slide. And then people in Kathmandu started to die because of cholera, a lot of them. And what they did was, when somebody had diarrhea, at that time the understanding was that we don't really need to treat them, we should not give them anything, just leave them. And then once they were about to die, they were taken to the river banks. And river bank, they will stay, the sick was left out over there. If they recovered, they recovered. If they died, they would cremate over there, right in the riverbed, right? So that was there. I'll just show you one photo, one aerial view of Kathmandu. If you see, this is the Bagmati River. This is the Bagmati River, and this is the Teku Hospital area. This is the Teku Hospital area. First hospital was somewhere around over here. Somewhere around over here. They established a hospital right on the riverbanks where the city people, I'll just zoom out, the city people, the core city area was that this was okay. This was the core city area at that time. The people who got sick over here, were brought to Teku, and then they were left in the banks of the Teku, in the left in the banks of Bagmati River, and then so people of that time thought, okay, let's make some kind of a shelter for people who are about to die. So for them, they built a small shelter near Patali Bhairav temple, where they could treat people, or they could support people who are having diarrhea, cholera, and are about to die. And that slowly converted to being a hospital, and Teku Hospital is just right there. Actually, this is the one. Yeah, this is Teku Hospital. This is right there because of that. This was the original site, and later it was shifted over here. So that hospital was right in middle of uh, right in the middle of cholera outbreak. Okay, that hospital was established for cholera, and ever since that has the hospital has treated lots of people with cholera. Even today, if you go to that wards over there, the beds are designed for diarrhea. The beds over there, majority of the beds in that hospital have got holes in between, so that the people who have got diarrhea, they don't have to stand up and go to the bathroom. If they want to defecate, they can evacuate right while sleeping itself. So it has been designed in that way. Now, they were, of course, diarrhea wards are devised in that way. That hospital also has been made in that way. So that is one important thing in Nepal and cholera. Okay, Teku Hospital, and later on that hospital was converted to tropical disease hospital. Is one of the oldest tropical hospital also in the world, but it did not function really well because of lack of research and all for a long time. Now they are reviving it. Hopefully, it was good. For the last few years, if you see, cholera numbers have gone drastically down. 2016 and 17 was a bit bad for Kathmandu. Around 100 something cases were seen. In 2006-7, lots of cases were seen. I remember we were first year, second year medical student at Nepal Medical College, and we had somewhere around, we had a ward built in our hospital. One of the wards were converted to cholera ward because there was an outbreak in somewhere around our hospital area as well. I don't remember the exact area or exact timing, but I remember setting up of a cholera ward, and that was how cholera was ward. What happens is once there is an outbreak, huge number of cases come in, so hospitals are converted to cholera hospital, and then they treat it in that way. That was done in our hospital as well. But somewhere in 2006, 2007. But luckily, it did not last long. Once the ward was established and few people had come, the outbreak had really gone down. So we were lucky. I remember that much. Okay. So the last year's report, if you see, there are 7 reported cases of cholera from 3 districts. There are three outbreaks only. Three outbreak having one outbreak was having only one person with cholera. They found out it was cholera, and there were no death. So this is the about the history of cholera in the world and Nepal. Okay, if you want to know more about it, please go through it. It's an interesting thing, cholera, the way it has evolved, the way epidemiology has changed because of it, the way epidemiology has evolved, our subject has evolved because of cholera. Okay, it's such an important one. So agent, the agent is Vibrio cholerae. There are various serotypes, but two types are the more important one: O1 and O139. These are the two ones that causes the outbreak, a known outbreak. Illness wise, there is no difference. Both of them, what they do is they produce exotoxin, multiply in the lumen, they produce exotoxin, and the toxin is the one that causes the diarrhea. Okay, it's not the organism, it's the toxin. Recently, it's the O1 or the L-TOR type that is causing the outbreaks worldwide, and there are various subgenomes of it. So genetic studies find the real source of it now. Reservoir of the infection, stool and vomit is the reservoir of infection. Infective period is a case of cholera is infective. A case, okay, a case. That is someone who's got the disease is infective for about 7 to 10 days. Reservoir of the infection are the humans are the only reservoir. Case ranges from inapparent infection about 75. So case is one reservoir is a case. Case about 75% are inapparent infection. So I might have had cholera in the past. I don't know. Okay, 75% is a big number, and very few of them have got severe disease. They are carriers. They are usually temporary, excrete few in number, not that associated with cholera. They give out cholera, but less. Preclinical or incubatory. There's another group of people who are called labeled as preclinical or incubatory. These are the ones who are the patients later on. The another one is convalescence carrier. These are the people who recover from an attack. They excrete Vibrio for about 2 to 3 weeks, even after the infection has been cured. So they they may remain infected for a long time. Okay. Contact and healthy carriers, subclinical infection for about 10 days, another dangerous thing. Healthy carriers, they might be. And the most dangerous is the chronic carriers. The disease hovers in the gallbladder for a long time, and the carrier might be there for about 10 years. That's a very long time. Okay. Host factor, both sexes are equally affected. Attacks are more in children during outbreaks because of their sanitary habits and hygiene. Gastric acidity, not much of a thing, just there in the text. Population mobility increases the risk of infection, and this is the reason why there is this seven pandemics of cholera because of population mobility. Economic status, highest in lowest economic group. Poor hygiene, that is the most important thing. Okay, it's highest number of disease seen in the poorest group. Immunity, attack of cholera is followed by immunity to reinfection, and followed by immunity to reinfection. So once a person is sick, immunity is there for a long time. Environmental factors, poor environmental sanitation, that is one important thing. Contaminated food and water is second important thing, and flies and all, it just during the outbreak, it just propagates the thing. Most important among this is food and water. Water primarily. Globally, if you see, it's the water that is the source of cholera, that is the cause of cholera, contaminated water. Some typical epidemiological features of cholera is that cholera is both epidemic and endemic. So in Kathmandu, we label it endemic, but still one disease also triggers the system. A cholera endemic area is an area where confirmed cholera cases are detected during the last 3 out of 5 years. So we always detect cholera in Kathmandu. Cholera is an endemic region. Okay, Kathmandu is an endemic region to cholera. 3 out of 5 years, if there is local transmission, with the evidence of local transmission of the disease, if we see, that is labeled as cholera endemic region. Cholera outbreak or epidemic is defined as the occurrence of at least one confirmed case of cholera with the evidence of local transmission. So, new area, see suddenly in Solokhambu district, we see 2 cases of cholera, that is an epidemic. Okay, but our system, our warning system is such that even one case of cholera is triggers the whole system. Cholera transmission is closely linked, very closely linked with very closely linked with inadequate access to clean water and sanitation facilities. This is the most important one. Typical at-risk area includes peri-urban slums where basic infrastructures are not available, as well as camps for internally displaced peoples or refugees, or during the time of crisis. Okay, the consequences of humanitarian crisis, such as disruption of water and sanitation system, or the displacement of population, inadequate and overcrowded camps, these are all risks to cholera. And uninfected bodies have never been reported as a source of epidemics, but basically it's humans are the carrier. Okay, so I think this part is clear to you all. Basically, we are worried about peri-urban areas, infrastructure is poor, and the camps. The camps are usually, whenever there is camps, or the camps, by camp I mean people living in camps for the reason that they have to leave their house because there is some kind of a crisis, and once they are in the camp, overcrowding. If there is one person with the disease, spread of disease is very easy. This was much of a worry during the time of earthquake, very much worried, and tackling it was a big issue. Luckily, we had very rare instance of diarrheal disease outbreak. Although there were camps here, there, everywhere in Nepal. In these 14 districts, there were camps right everywhere. While you go to your college in Chutipati, if you see the big land area that is enclosed right now, that is an open space just beside Hyatt Hotel and Chutipati area in front of Badbatini. That whole ground was a camp, and there were thousands of people living over there. And that was, we always worried that that will become the hub of cholera or diarrheal disease, but it never happened. That's just one example. There were various other camps like that have camps in during the post-earthquake period. Mode of transmission by now I think it's clear. It's fecal, it's contaminated fecal water, contaminated food and drinks. Direct contact very less. It's usually the food and water. Incubation period. Interesting thing is that it carrier is for a long time. Incubation period is very quick, few hours up to 5 days, commonly 1 to 2 days. Today contaminated, tomorrow the disease. That is the common thing. That is the general thing. Clinical features: severity depends on loss of fluid, rapidity of fluid loss. Okay, how rapid the fluid has lost, it depends on that. So 90% of the LTOR cases that is currently right now is mild one. Okay, is mild one. So there are three stages of cholera. Sorry, the first stage is stage of evacuation. Suddenly abrupt onset, profuse, painless, watery diarrhea. Okay, suddenly the patient will have diarrhea, and the diarrhea is such that they lose water continuously, may pass up to 40 times a day, 40 stools a day. Just imagine where will the water come from. Okay, and it is followed by vomiting. Now just imagine the state of that person. 40 times, up to 40 times, even if it's not 40, even if it's 30, the amount of water that is lost is such a huge number, and there's vomiting as well. The patient will become dehydrated immediately. And then stage of collapse. The stage of collapse: sunken eyes, hollow cheeks, scaphoid abdomen, subabnormal temperature. That means the temperature has decreased because there is no fluid in the body.